Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State, has been mocked to the Las Vegas Raiders more than any player I've seen this offseason. Hell, I don't know if I've been doing this show for a long time, if there's ever been a player that has been mocked to a team like the Raiders more than Ashton Jeanty. So coming up here, I'm going to get into the latest rumors around Jeanty going to the Raiders. I'm going to break down a mock draft from Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, and then I'm going to tell all of y'all why I could see the Raiders end up picking Jeanty at number 6. So the order of today's show is this: Mel Kiper mock with Jeanty, Daniel Jeremiah mock with Jeanty, and then why I think that the Silver and Black could ultimately go out and get the Boise State running back. If you're somebody that goes, Mitch, I want this guy right here in Silver and Black, hit that like button. Me sitting up here on this show, Jeanty wouldn't be my pick at number 6. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be fired up about it. He is the best running back in this year's class. He is exactly, I think, what Pete Carroll's old school defense or old school offenses look like. You put him in a Chip Kelly offense, it's not something that we've really seen before, but man, oh man, I do think it would be fun. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because anytime a mock draft goes out, I feel like I see Ashton Jeanty. And the fact that Mel Kiper's mock draft ended up starting like this, where Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Sheddeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham all go off the board, then it ended up being Jeanty there at the pick at number 6. I do think that you're starting to see a certain consensus, and maybe these guys are hearing something that, I'm just simply not. I know the Raiders like Jeanty, but if you ask a lot of NFL analysts out there, it's almost like Jeanty's already a Raider. Heck, this is why Mel Kiper ended up taking Jeanty to the Raiders at number 6. Coach Pete Carroll wasn't waiting until the draft to find his quarterback for 2025. After Las Vegas had the number 13 pick last year and missed on all 6 of the first-round QBs, the team went out and traded for Geno Smith before free agency kicked off. Carroll obviously has a history with Smith from their time together in Seattle and knows how to maximize him. But Carroll's teams also have leaned heavily on the run in the past. So I'm giving the Raiders the best player still on my board in Jeanty at pick number 4. I think the way that Mel says that is the biggest reason why Jeanty is being mocked to the Raiders. It's not like the Raiders know for a fact that they're going to take Jeanty, or all these NFL analysts are sitting here going, oh, well, we know something that nobody else knows. To me, I think what they're doing is looking at what the Raiders did last season. They went best player available. They took Brock Bowers at 13, despite it not being maybe a biggest need for the Raiders. Now what teams are doing, or they're looking at the Raiders, they're looking at needs, and they're going, running back is a clear need. And Ashton Jeanty is probably the best player available, according to a lot of draft boards out there. So because of that, that's why I think that we're continuously seeing Jeanty being mocked to the Raiders by ESPN, NFL.com, PFF. It doesn't matter. Jeanty is continuously being mocked to the Las Vegas Raiders. My job here is to be able to paint a picture of how I think it could happen. Let's keep it rolling, though, why Mel ended up taking Jeanty at number 6. Elusiveness, speed, physicality, vision. With the ball in his hands, Jeanty really has it all, rushing for 2,600 yards and 29 touchdowns this last season. Plus, he has some pass-catching upside with 66 catches over the past 2 campaigns. The Raiders were last in rushing last season, averaging 3.6 yards per carry and 79.8 per game. Jeanty would change everything there and create a solid offensive nucleus with Smith, Jakobi, Meyers, and Brock Bowers. So let me know down below, is Ashton Jeanty a top 10 NFL running back right now? Because in my mind, if you don't think Jeanty's a top 10 running back in the NFL right now, he has no business being taken at pick number 6. Because the running back spot to me is a position that can succeed when everything else looks good. Think of it as, look at what Saquon Barkley looked like on the Giants compared to what Saquon Barkley looked like on the Eagles. I want the Saquon Barkley on the Eagles. I don't want Saquon on the Giants. My fear is if we don't have a talented team around Jeanty, he looks like Barkley on the Giants and not Barkley on the Philadelphia Eagles. So is Jeanty a top 10 back right now? Let me know, yes or no. I do think that Jeanty is a top 10 running back in the NFL right now. Hell, there's some people out there that think he might be top 6, top 5. They might be pushing a little bit because he can't catch the football, but his ability to do everything really, really well, I think would be a really fun matchup with somebody like Chip Kelly. Like the fact that Kelly made Quinshon Judkins look the way that he did, and then you have somebody like Jeanty who can bounce off of wimpy tacklers, can take it the distance, can really punish runners. He reminds me, honestly, of a Marshawn Lynch that's got legit home run speed. And we know how successful Marshawn Lynch was with somebody like Pete Carroll. I'm not saying that their game is the exact same. I just know that their running style, their physicality, I'm trying to absolutely run through your face, and then I'm also going to laugh at you while I'm running by you type of mentality. That's what Ashton Jeanty brings to the table every time he touches the football. So Mel had Jeanty going to the Raiders. Daniel Jeremiah, guess what? He also had the Raiders taking Jeanty. And when these two guys end up thinking the exact same way, a lot of rumors start rolling, which is why I'm sitting up here and I'm talking about it. I'll tell you what the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft looked like and why Jeremiah had Jeanty going to the Raiders in a moment. Before I do, though, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, is here, and this is one of my favorite times to get started. I love football season, and I love season long for the Raiders. But March Madness, a little college basketball, are you kidding me right now? This is one of the most electric times of the year. And why not make it even more electric with PrizePicks? PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. If you are planning on watching any games in the month of March, which I cannot wait for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can already tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be watching college basketball with my fiance, Alex, and I'm going to be watching some college basketball with my dog, Chuck. The fact that I have Alex interested in PrizePicks tells me I'm doing the right things because, as a man, I want to be able to sit down and watch a game for 2 hours. The fact that I can sit down and watch a game for 2 hours with my significant other and she's also as interested in the game as I am because she has a chance to win some money is why I love PrizePicks, and I think y'all will too. So one more time, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Make sure that you use code CLNS. So here's Daniel Jeremiah's mock. It's literally like the exact same thing, minus Jalen Walker's going at 5 here instead of somebody like Mason Graham. So again, because of that being the scenario, I see why Jeanty ends up getting picked because I went back and I looked at Jeremiah's draft rankings, and I saw where he had a lot of these players ranked. But this is what Jeremiah had to say on Jeanty. The Raiders can take some pressure off of Geno Smith by adding Jeanty, who is one of the top 3 players in this year's draft. Here are Jeremiah's draft rankings. And because I said it earlier I can see the Raiders going best player available, I think a lot of people out there in the NFL world think that the Raiders are going to go best player available. So it doesn't shock me that Jeremiah has the Raiders taking the best player available on his board. The reason why I'm doing this show is because I am really trying to illustrate to people that I believe that NFL media consensus is just giving the Raiders the best player available, which oftentimes is Ashton Jeanty, instead of actually taking a player that they could take. I'm not saying that they're not going to take Jeanty, but thinking that it's a lock at number 6, I think you might be kidding yourself a little bit. So one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is I love doing this show, and I love being glass half full, right? We spent all season being glass half empty, and I'm done with that. So anytime I hear something as often as what I've heard it, my mind starts going, well, why would the Raiders do that? Why would the Raiders draft Ashton Jeanty at number 6? So I'm going to tell you why I think that could happen. But if you're a Raiders fan that always is looking for draft videos, if you're a Raiders fan that wants free Raiders analysis, if you're a Raiders fan that just likes to hang out and have a good time with a bunch of fans all the time, I promise you, we are the channel for you. We have been able to build a beautiful, beautiful community that I am very proud of that drops videos every single day, 100% free. If you want to go check out my latest Raiders mock draft, this video is going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. I make a fun trade. Go find out what that trade was. Also, I was able to get Teteroa McMillan. So here's why I think that the Raiders could go out and draft Ashton Jeanty. The first reason, and I've said it maybe 1,000 times already on this show, the Raiders I could see going with the best player available approach. It worked so well for them last season, and I get it, totally different regime, but because it worked so well for them last season, could they do it again this season? They took Brock Bowers, they took JPJ, they were the best players available on the board. Jeanty considered by many to be a top 5 prospect. Quite frankly, I don't know if I've seen a rankings list that doesn't have Jeanty as a top 5 overall prospect. And because the Raiders do have plenty of needs on offense and defense, who knows? Maybe Pete Carroll and John Spytek decide to go with the best player that is available on their board. Let's go to the next reason. It does fill a big need. We can't sit up here and say that Ashton Jeanty at running back doesn't fill a major need for this team. I know the Raiders went out and they signed Raheem Mostert. Mostert, though, is a home run hitter, cheap contract, and when he's healthy, that's when he's at his best. You know who would be a great running back to keep Mostert healthy? Ashton Jeanty. I don't know what type of run that Mostert would get. He does have a connection with somebody like Chip Kelly, who was with him, again, 2015, 2016. But Jeanty is a dog, and he would really help this running game get going that struggled last season. I mean, the Raiders rushed for 1,357 yards last year. That is 204 less than the next closest team. The Raiders, 3.6 yards per carry. The only other team that didn't average 4 yards per carry was the Los Angeles Rams. Also, on top of all that, they put the ball on the ground 10 times. 10 times. That was 28th in the NFL. You also ran for 78 first downs. That was also dead last. If you want to be a team that moves the chains, you got to be able to move the chains with the running game. It's only going to help out Geno Smith. Let's go to the next reason why I could see it happening. The Raiders did end up meeting with Jeanty at the NFL Combine. The Raiders, to my knowledge, had only 3 formal meetings with running backs at the Combine, according to the Chat Sports team. Jeanty was one of them. The other 2, Trevian Henderson, Quinshad Junkins, both running backs played with Chip Kelly this past season. And I do wonder if the Raiders' initial thought process was, we take Jeanty in round 1, these are 2 running backs that we could target in round 3. That ain't happening anymore. Quinshad Junkins and Trevian Henderson are both going to go in the top 50. So if you're the Raiders, you're going, do I take Jeanty at 6 or do I take one of those other running backs at 37? That should be the thought process right now. Jeanty, and this might be the number one reason why you would do it, he does help out Geno Smith. And when I went back and I watched Geno film, one of the things that I noticed was how much better he was when he actually had a running game going. And here's a crazy stat, because to me, I don't want to look at just touchdowns, interceptions, passing yards. We traded for Geno Smith for one reason, to win frickin' football games, okay? And last year, and throughout the last 3 years for Seattle, when Geno Smith in a game, and that team had a 4.0 yards per carry, which that is still well below average in the NFL. But when the Seahawks averaged 4 yards per carry last season, the Seahawks went 7-3. In 2023, they went 6-3. In 2022, they went 8-4. So I'm sitting up here telling you, if you can be 4.0 yards per carry, which Ashton Jeanty's going to get 4 yards a clip in the NFL, that was 21-10 overall. I know Geno's got some limitations. I see him on tape. But when Geno's at his best is when the Raiders are going to be a complete team. And Jeanty helps you be a complete team. The final reason is Brennan Carroll, Pete Carroll's son. And if you don't think that Pete wants to make his kid look a little bit better, I think that you're fooling yourself there a little bit. I know Pete's got a job to do, but Pete's son is also in charge of running the football on offense. He is the run game coordinator, which Chip's going to call plays. Chip's going to be the big sayer. But at the exact same time, that's going to be how other teams evaluate Brennan Carroll. Brennan is also the offensive line coach. He was also the run game coordinator from 2015 to 2020 in Seattle. That could be one of those just a little bit of a cherry on top of going, well, I could take Teteroa McMillan, or I could go Ashton Jeanty. If I go with Jeanty, I'm going to make my son look a lot better. Where if I go McMillan, he might not look as good. That might not be a reason. I'll be real. It shouldn't be an actual conversation. But I know Pete Carroll obviously loves his son. And because of that, maybe that's why the Raiders end up drafting Jeanty. So again, I threw out a bunch of different ideas there. Ultimately, if you want the Raiders to have a legit running game, and if you want them to be a smash mouth type of team that also has that ability to hit a home run, Jeanty could be that guy. I think he'd be a great fit in a Chip Kelly offense, but I also think Jeanty would be great in almost any offense he'd be on, but you got to make sure you got an offensive line. I love Jeanty. Top running back on the board. But I think the reason why he's being mocked to the Raiders is because he's the best player available, and that's the strategy that a lot of people see the Raiders doing this season.